Hey everyone, Brendan Sender here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me. I'm here with Marc. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Marc is the owner of High Fidelity in Amityville, New York, Long Island, right?
Long Island, we are in Amityville, New York.
Okay,
Yep.
what's the address?
141 Merrick Road, Amityville, New York, 11701. About 2 blocks away from the Amityville Horror House.
Yeah,
I know
there
why
you go.
you-
That is,
good,
that
good,
is the
good.
key thing. The first thing I thought
that's
of when
on
I came
Ocean.
here.
Yeah,
Okay, so you
Yeah.
can make a trip out of it. You can come out here, see the original
a lot of people do.
people,
yeah, sure. Yeah,
where that
yeah,
took
yeah,
place.
Yeah,
Stop by here.
sure.
Yeah, why not? But I wanted to talk to you today about what it's like to own a record store. So how long have you had, not necessarily this location, but this store?
Going on 21 years now.
Wow,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. We've been in this location about 8 years, and we were down the block, still in Amityville, and a
Okay.
much smaller store for as many, for what, I don't know, whatever equals 21.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right, we're not math people. We're music people.
That's right.
I know, right?
Yeah. This thing does it all for me right here.
That's all you need, right? The register and the product. So I guess
Yeah.
that leads me into my first question.
Yeah.
You know, how hard is it to keep the store stocked? I mean, you certainly have a ton of stuff,
Yeah.
but with people bringing stuff in,
Right, that's a good
quality
question.
product,
So I opened up in early 05, so now going
Okay.
on
20 years,
20,
yeah.
yeah, 20, going to be 21 years. So when I first opened, it was the year of the iPad or iPod or
Yeah,
whatever was
right,
out
that was
there, or that
breaking.
era. It was a bad era for vinyl. It was a bad
Okay.
era for CDs.
Yeah.
Everybody thought I was out of my mind, but I had about 5,000 records in my parents' basement, and about as many CDs in their basement.
stuff that you had just collected, not your own collection, but
Right.
stuff you were using to start the store.
Right.
Okay.
Right. In the back of my mind, to have a store.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
At some point.
So
yeah.
you said about 5,000 CDs, 5,000 records?
About 5,000 records.
Okay,
I mean,
'cause
I've been collecting since I was, a kid. Yeah.
Because I have no
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
I was like, what
Yeah.
would it take
Yeah.
to open a
Yeah.
store?
Yeah.
Like if you were starting from
At
scratch.
that time, we opened up in a 900 square foot spot. It wasn't enough.
No.
It wasn't enough. It
Okay.
looked like a hospital room. I mean, it was very white. There was
Right.
nothing on the walls.
Right.
There was nothing. It was bare.
Yeah.
It was barren.
It
But
takes a while to create
Yes.
that record store look.
that's correct. But when we opened, everybody was just like, records.
Yeah.
Here's Ramones. Here's
Yeah.
Zappa. Here's everybody was just like, what? No one buys records anymore. These are I
This
was
is
getting
ancient,
Zappa records
right.
for like 50 cents.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
ridiculous. But like, that's what they wanted.
Right,
And
right.
now we pay much more than that, obviously. But
Certainly.
but like they basically wanted to get rid of them. They didn't even want to. A lot of them were just take them.
yeah.
Which was crazy, and that went on for a couple of years.
Well, so that's good. I mean, it
Yeah.
certainly helps you get
Yeah.
started with
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
But of course, today,
Yeah.
people know the value of this stuff.
Yeah,
And
of course. Yeah,
You're
look,
competing
and
now with...
they deserve everything that they get. So if
Yeah.
they're coming in with a Zappa record that I'm gonna be putting out for $15 or $20,
Yeah.
and I'm giving them 30, 40, 50% of that,
Right.
because I know I can move that tomorrow.
Right.
Sabbath even quicker.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Well, and that's
yeah.
cool too that you
you got to pay. That's
Right.
the whole thing. You
Right,
can't.
right.
In order to get stock,
Quality
my
stock.
dad always told me you got to spend money to make money, right?
Sure.
So you can't be ripping people off and just giving nothing.
Right.
And in that regard, you get more rewarded because
Certainly.
you get good stuff in, and that's what we try to base our model on.
Right.
So it's been working for
for
almost 21 years. Yeah,
hey,
yeah,
that
so,
says a lot right there.
Sure. Yeah.
So you see a lot of quick turnover then in the product and stuff that you bring out, or is there certain stuff that might sit for a while?
Yeah,
like artists and-
I don't know if a Kiss record or a Zeppelin or a Floyd record has ever made it actually into the section.
It goes that fast.
It goes that fast.
Wow.
Sabbath, the same
Right.
thing. The meat and potatoes bands, they just
Right.
don't make the section. So what happens is I have a new arrival section. Okay.
Right.
The new arrival
that's my
section is
favorite
about
section to go through.
and it's both on CD and on
Yeah,
vinyl.
yeah,
Right now,
yeah.
I'm kind of talking on vinyl, but on vinyl, there's about 13 rows, 12 or 13 rows of new arrivals.
Yeah.
And they're new arrivals. They're not just So it's after like 3 weeks, a month or so, I filter it out into the regular sections. The bands I mentioned do not make it usually. That's why, I see a tag for Zeppelin with all the Zeppelin records. Well, you got to go into the new arrivals. That's where you'll find the Zeppelin records because they just don't
so
last.
quick.
Yeah, there's a 24-hour window with a lot of that stuff. And then like getting into like New Order or like that just doesn't. That's like an hour or two maybe.
Right.
What happens is I try to like pace. I try to show on Facebook.
That's what I was going to say.
I just highlight it. Though.
Right.
I
see some of your stuff on there. I was going to say it's got to bring a lot of people in fairly quick. Seeing it on social media, which back in the day we didn't have. Right. You only could go to a record store. So I mean that's a real added bonus.
Right. And we try to keep it in the store only. Customers coming in, buying it.
Yep.
After like a week or two, if I see it sitting, I'll say, look, we have this. I'll ship it out. Whatever the case.
So
might be.
You will do shipping.
We do shipping. Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah. We try to keep it. We try to keep our core. Followers, the people that are here.
Right.
I don't want somebody in a living room being like,
order stuff.
Can if they're here, that's great. I just kind of highlight. I just want to show what we got in for the most part. Not everything, but just highlighting. Look, these 6 Floyd records came in. They're in really nice shape. If you want to come down, like kind of thing.
Yeah. And how do you find the difference between new product that is just released versus used stuff?
I've been seeing classics. A lot of new product come in lately used, like been bringing back in.
I find a lot of sealed stuff out there.
Yeah, they're coming in now with 180 gram collections, a lot of that type of stuff. And the first thing I ask them, are there any color variant? Because you gotta know, you're not giving them a buck for this stuff.
Sure.
All that stuff they spent $25-$30 a pop
at the time,
on. At the time, and at the same time I'm putting it out used, but we can't, so we got to go through that. That takes that kind of collection takes a little bit longer to go through. Still, less than it depends on how many records there are, but usually there's a stack of 50 or 100. It'll take me a half an hour or so.
Right.
Whereas some of the other stuff that's used from the 60s to the 80s, I know exactly what I'm going to get, or exactly what I can put them out for.
You've seen it 100 times.
Right. With some of the other, with the new one, the 180 gram type stuff, the reissue type stuff, it's a little bit harder to gauge on what I can do. So I gotta figure that out. But they come in. As far as them selling the 180 grams, I mean, look, a lot of people just do originals. They just, if it's not an original, first Boston record, they don't want to talk about it. Then there are people that are looking for Kevin Gray.
Exactly.
And they'll only buy a reissue if it's Kevin Gray.
Right. So, but that's good that there's a market for both of those things. Because there was a period where people were only interested in the remasters, the reissues, and they didn't care about the original things, and those things were getting sold off. Now everybody wants that again. I know I'm buying today a couple things that are original pressing on MCA records when the artist came out versus the remaster that I have.
Right.
For me a lot of that is I want the original art. They start modifying that stuff on later issues, and so I want the original sound that I grew up with, the original art and all that sort of stuff.
I know when CDs were first coming out, they were coming out I guess overseas, right, in Japan, and then they started making them in America, and then they started remastering a lot of stuff in the 90s. I remember that. That was like the decade of remastering. I remember that, and then the bonus tracks. I loved all that stuff because you had all the Sabbath stuff with all the live stuff, and, that was cool.
I liked it then, but I have to say now I prefer to have just the classic album. It's put that stuff on a separate disc. Just give me the album. I don't want to.
That's interesting.
Sit in there all
of
the
course.
outtakes and things.
Now when you collect, do you collect by because they had the labels. Remember the Atomic or the Target label? Or the,
I do on some labels. Some of these are like reissue labels, but like Rock Candy, Wounded Bird, Bad Reputation
those are
Records.
great. Those are great.
Those are great ones, right? So I do really more of that kind of stuff. If
One Way was a good one.
One Way, exactly. Just because I'm like, this reissue, whatever it is, it's got to be good. That label, I like everything.
Exactly. Yeah, they did a great job. Yeah, all the Wounded Bird did great. Repertoire is another company that I really like. They're like a Prague type company.
Yeah, exactly.
Expensive, but they're good. Yeah,
Renaissance Records. I mean, all those labels found good things that ran under the radar.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's great stuff.
The cool thing is, man, I can find all that stuff out in your store.
Oh yeah. Well, we try. We pride ourselves. We try to. We got a lot of regulars here. So, and if they're coming in 3 days a week, I don't want them to see the same
thing
thing
over
time.
and
And
over,
I have a complex with that. Believe me.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's I feel like I have to like try to please everyone that comes in,
Right.
and we do have a good percentage of people that do not like. When you walk in here, you're most likely gonna come out with something. You know, you gotta.
I've never not.
Most people find something. And you know, it's one of those things. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just don't. You're not looking.
Well,
you know, they're looking for that new Billie Eilish from like 10 years ago, and it might not have that colored variant that they're looking for.
Right, one specific thing.
Right, exactly. You know.
But I find, for me, if I go to a record store with not anything specific in mind, and I'm literally just going to peruse, I'm going to start in the Yays and go through it, or I'm going to start at the newer rivals at least. Yeah. I'll always find something. I mean, today, like, I'm currently like really listening to a lot of Eagles, Firefall, ELP.
Nice.
So I'm not finding any of that here. Not that you don't have it, stuff that I've already owned. But I'm finding all this other stuff, and that's great because then I've got something new, something different to go down a different tangent, a different rabbit hole. And I like that. So I just go through all of it and see what sparks an interest for me. You know? And then 100%. I go from there.
Speaking of the CDs, I see I see a big uptick with them. Big uptick in sales with it. Last couple of years.
Anthony over at Sound Exchange has been saying the
2021, 2022, 2023, you know, through now, I'm seeing it. I see it with kids.
Right. They've been switching over because they found they can get multiple CDs for the price of one.
That's
LP.
right. Yeah, I see it with 20-somethings. They're first starting to drive.
Right.
And they're, or like even late teens, they're first starting to drive. I think there's two reasons for this. I think the reason why you just said that's the main reason. Nevermind on record. Well, forget it. Yeah. I'm not talking about like an
original. Right. Forget that.
But I'm talking about like Nevermind on 180 gram is like $30 or $28, whatever. On CD we have it for $5.
Exactly.
All right, so $5.99.
You get the whole catalog almost.
Right. So and it's tangible.
Right.
You know, you can own it. They can still impress their girlfriend. Right. So you know.
Well, and see, I think it's also that CDs have been around and then sort of disappeared for a long enough period of time, like LPs, that they're now starting to make that comeback.
That's right.
The next generation is coming around of kids saying, well, my parents are into vinyl, you know, the millennials or the whatever, because it came back for them and their generation. I want something that's my own. Right? I've seen kids getting into cassettes. And I know you've got a lot of cassettes out here.
Look, I mean, they didn't grow up with vinyl, but they didn't grow up with CDs or tapes either. So this is all new to them, which is exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the other reason is that like they're buying even a Nissan is $90,000 nowadays.
Oh my God!
You know, like a new
insane.
get a new car. You know,
it's
insane. It's crazy. It's just crazy what's going on with cars. So they're buying used cars. The used cars have CD players in them. You know. 2015 on down. They have
I've got a 2005 Honda.
Right, so there you go. You have a CD player. I kept my Jeep as long as I possibly could to have that CD player in there. You know.
I know. Mine's starting to get on the fritz, and I'm praying that my mechanic will be able to find one that retroactively can fit and work in it. Because if that goes, man, I'll probably have to buy a car just to get a CD player.
And the unfortunate thing is that if CDs even come back in a big way, I really don't think they're going to put them back in because of how easy it is. It's that. And the car companies don't want to deal with fixing them. That's the thing.
And streaming's fine. I love streaming. When I commute to work, I take the New Jersey Transit.
I do audio. What is it? Audible.
Yeah.
I have because I have a 35-minute commute from Long Beach, so I use the books on tape or whatever, but it's book on your your iPhone, right? Yeah. So, but it's fun, you know. I get it, and I get streaming, I get the convenience of it, and I get the billions of people that do that and they don't collect, but for the people that do both, it's a wonderful experience.
I think for the casual average music fan, streaming is great because they're just going to listen to whatever is hot and popular, and somebody tells them to listen to something, they can go do it. But when you become a fan of a band, and you want that thing from them, there's a lot of these albums that aren't on streaming or disappear because they lose the rights.
That is true,
I dated a girl once a while back, and she was only into streaming and stuff, and I forget the artist, but she was into somebody, and downloaded 2 of their albums, and then I went to my wall and I pulled off like 5 or 6 more, and she's like, "What?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, just because you only see 2 on there doesn't mean that's all they ever made."
A whole catalog. We try to carry some labels that are not, like a Gerson label. The Gerson label over there, that's like a prog and psych reissue label.
Yeah.
Not gonna find any of that stuff on streaming.
No.
Numero Group, another amazing label.
Right.
You're not going to find that stuff on streaming. So we try to carry what you're also not going to find on those other things. You listen to a lot of stuff, I'm sure. Yeah, you just picked out a Sad Cafe. I can't imagine that a lot of that stuff is on there.
These two both happen to be on there, but there's another one that was over there with 2 more albums on it that weren't on there. I couldn't check it out. And that's why I always have the headphones. I got my phone so I can check this stuff out before I buy it. That's where streaming is cool.
Right.
But in the end of the day, I still want to go home with that stuff.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh yeah, no. It's always great. Yeah, the pleasure's all mine, man. Believe me, you're great. And I love when you come, and
thank you.
Everybody sees your videos, and it's awesome. It's great for everybody.
Yeah. So hey guys, if you're in the area, Amityville and Long Island, definitely stop by High Fidelity Records. Say hi to Mark, and come in and check out all the amazing product that they got here.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. Take care, and I'll be talking to you real soon.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.